Welcome to the Mixology Talk podcast. I'm Chris.
And I'm Julia, and we're the folks behind abarabove.com, the ultimate resource for craft bartenders, bar operators, and pretty much anybody who likes tasty drinks.
So I'm a bar consultant with over 15 years of hospitality experience.
And I run abarabove.com, where we post pretty interesting articles, if I do say so myself. We post this podcast. And we also have a sweet Instagram account where we post lots and lots of tasty cocktail recipes as well. So you should definitely check that out at abarabove.
So before we get started, here's a quick tip brought to you by BevSpot, and this one's all about benchmarks. In the previous podcast, we talked about inventory and some of those benchmark numbers to aim for with your beverage program. Comparing your own bar's numbers against numbers for similar bars can be incredibly informative and will shed light on opportunities for you to improve. Unfortunately, it's unlikely your competitors are willing to share this information. So thankfully, BevSpot put together a tool to help you out. See how your beverage program stacks up against others in our industry with BevSpot's free bar profit analysis tool. Input a few numbers, like your average cost of goods, yearly revenue, and average inventory value, and the tool will not only compare your program against other bars and restaurants, it'll also give you some ideas for improvement as well. So check out the free tool over at bevspot.com/barprofit. This is episode number 130 of the Mixology Talk podcast. And this week, we will be talking about one of the key relationships you're trying to manage as a bar manager or a buyer, and that is a relationship that you have with your sales rep.
The brand rep is a hugely vital part of this business. I don't think that you can really operate a bar without one, at least not in the three-tier system in the U.S. A good brand rep can bring you tons of great opportunities and, frankly, can make your day a little more fun.
Yep.
A bad brand rep can make you hide behind the bar every time they walk in the door. So there's definitely, it's definitely really important to manage that relationship.
So in this industry where, everybody kind of knows everybody, it's really important to kind of get this right, and you don't want to burn bridges if you get it wrong. So we're going to be covering a little bit about how to kind of manage that scenario and get a really good brand rep at the end of the day.
And somebody who will not make you pull all your hair out.
Right.
So before we get too far into this topic, I do want to mention one kind of disclaimer, and that is we're not here just to talk crap about brand reps.
Bag draggers.
Did you just make that up?
No, it's a thing.
I have not heard that.
Oh, yeah, because they always have those rolling bags.
I mean, it makes sense. So maybe we are. Maybe we are just going to talk about
bag draggers.
Bag draggers. Joking aside, it is a tough job, and I really do respect great brand reps. I respect all brand reps, I guess, to some degree, but I really respect the good ones.
Uh-huh.
It's a tough job. You have 100+ clients, possibly, especially if you're in a large city, and you are schlepping from client to client to client throughout the week. It can be really hard to take the time to really devote a lot of effort to every single client. So I want to just call that out. I don't want brand reps to think that we're just talking bad about them and not understanding where they're coming from. I think it's important to acknowledge that we only see a very small part of their day.
Yeah.
So that being said, I do think it's still worthwhile to talk about what makes a good brand rep, what makes a bad brand rep, and then to discuss a little bit later how you as the buyer can sort of manage that relationship.
Yeah, and so there are definitely some key areas that make a good brand rep. So we'll cover a little bit of that and then talk a little bit about something that we probably already all know is what makes a bad brand rep.
The other side.
Right. But there's a giant umbrella kind of over the whole good brand rep category, and that is good communication. It kind of just all encompassing. Somebody that has good communication skills is going to be pretty vital for this particular role. Now, underneath that, I think somebody that understands your business and really knows where you're going is really vital for being a brand rep.
Somebody keeps showing up week over week with whipped cream vodka to your super craft bar.
They probably don't understand what you're trying to do, and it's more about them than it is about you.
Yeah.
So this, like I said, like we always say, this is about relationships. So it's a two-way street. So if they're putting the time and the commitment into understanding your products, understanding what you're serving, understanding, what you're trying to accomplish, it's going to go a long ways in how they interact with you. The other thing is they understand how you want to interact with them. A lot of the time, I don't want a brand rep sitting in my bar every single day, asking me, even if it's just a friendly chat. Maybe I just want to have them at hand's length and give them my order over the phone. There's a big spectrum of people, how people want to interact with reps. So understanding what that is, and I think is a vital part of the relationship.
And I think that's a personality thing, right? You might be the kind of person who wants to have that face-to-face relationship, like every Thursday at 2, show up, let's talk. And you might not. You might not be that person. You might be up to your eyeballs and you just want to text in your order, and that's fine too.
Yeah.
The key here is after you have that conversation with your rep, do they respect that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the other thing about understanding your brand is they're going to give you certain opportunities that really reflect where you're trying to go with your brand, with your restaurant, with your bar program. And if they don't understand it, they can get that really wrong, and it can cause a lot of confusion. So, check with your local laws as far as what opportunities mean for your bar program. But in San Francisco, this could mean anything from new menus. They print your new menus. It could be uniforms. It could be a lot of different things. Opportunities and support show their head in many different ways, as I'm sure a lot of you already know this.
It could also be something like, a brand rep may be able to bring in somebody from their education team to come and actually educate your staff about this particular product or about a genre in general. They may be willing to come in and do a cognac tasting where you can learn a little bit more about, what is the difference between VS and VSOP. That can be tremendously helpful and valuable.
Right.
And that's something that a good brand rep can make available to you.
Yeah, and this doesn't just necessarily focus on spirits, because this is available across the entire spectrum of beverage, on food. So, if you're running a really great sherry program and you need somebody to talk to you and your staff about sherry, your brand rep can put you in the right channels as far as getting somebody in there and talk about it. Amari, same way. Beer. I had a great rep here in San Francisco Bay Area from Sierra Nevada, and she did a huge education not only on her brand but on beer and service, and it was amazing. She was really great. So these are the opportunities they can offer you as well, besides some of the other ones we talked about. And I think one of the last areas, when you're doing some a lot of ordering, they're going to let you know if there's any combos out there. So combos are like 6-pack of Grey Goose, you get a bottle of Hendrix or something for free. It's part of the publicity they're running for the month. It changes every month. It changes from brand to brand. And a good rep is going to know what that means and how they can help you get some good product in your door that reflects your brand.
And I think furthermore, a good rep will once again understand who you are, what you have on your back bar, and they won't waste your time on combos that don't make any sense for you.
Right, exactly.
So that's a good brand rep. I'm going to talk about a bad brand rep. A bad brand rep doesn't do any of that.
Pretty much exactly the opposite.
No, not really. I'm sure that we all have some amazing stories. In fact, I would love to hear some of these. I don't know. Like, if there's a way to do it nicely, I don't really want it to become like...
I'm sure we all have our stories.
I don't want this to become a bag dragger conversation, since that's a term, apparently. But, I mean, I think the stories that I've heard from Chris, either from your own experience or from other folks in the industry, are, I think a huge pet peeve is either not showing up for appointments or showing up on the wrong time, just basically not respecting time. Whatever that looks like. If you are the kind of person who just needs to place your order and move on, and that brand rep shows up every day at 1, that might be really annoying. You may not have time for them, and that can be really frustrating.
Right.
Placing orders you didn't ask for. This is something you've told me has happened.
Oh man, so many times.
Yeah, I mean, you were telling me that just like a case of something showed up, right?
Well, it's like a case of this. Like it always happens towards the end of the month when they need to make their sales goal, and you can figure out what the item is because it shows up in your inventory, and you never ordered. I remember I got a $250 bottle of Grand Marnier. I'm never going to sell it, and it just shows up in my inventory. And they wouldn't answer my phone calls.
Oh, great.
They wouldn't. You have a 2-week window, I think, to return product. They dodged me for 2 weeks. So I was stuck with this stuff unless I was going to drive it down to the thing myself. But yeah, stuff like that. I mean, there's so many stories about terrible brand reps
Yeah.
and how they can really affect your business negatively.
That's a pretty good one though. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lie. Yeah, I mean, I think along these lines, once again, like you said about communication with a good brand rep, lack of communication is a good sign of a not so great brand rep.
Right.
Somebody who doesn't necessarily understand your bar, and maybe they're just crazy busy. Once again, disclaimer. Maybe they just haven't had the time to really dedicate the thought into understanding your bar and where you sit in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still gonna hinder your ability to work with them. So it's still super important. So I think that is kind of my summary. I know that we've got lots of story. I don't want to get too negative here, but I mean, as with any role, there's always going to be great and there's going to be not so great. So I think the next question is to start to think about, like, if you have a brand rep that you're not loving, what do you do about it? So let's say you've got a brand rep that's just not working for you. What do you do? I think step one is super important, and our step one that I'm about to recommend is often overlooked. And that is figure out what you're looking for and ask for it.
Yeah.
They're not mind readers. If you are the kind of person who just wants to text in your order and not have loads and loads of FaceTime and just like move on with your life, but that rep shows up once a week and sits at your bar and it aggravates you, did you ask him not to?
Right.
Like, did you tell him what you're looking for?
Yeah.
And if you didn't, then it's kind of fair game.
Right, exactly. I mean, they're trying to figure out how to have a good relationship with you. The thing that Julia mentioned earlier is they have 150 different customers that they have to serve. It might just take them time to figure out, all right, Tom wants me to come in and do this thing, and he wants to interact with me this way, and it just might take time to do that. So if you just kind of bring it out and say, look, here's the deal. I want to just text you my order, and then, quarterly when I come up with a new menu, I'll give you a heads up and you can bring product in then. That's going to save them a ton of time, and they're going to understand exactly how you operate.
Likewise, if your brand rep is just kind of not getting your concept, if they keep suggesting stuff that doesn't make sense for you and, that kind of a thing, once again, maybe it's time to just have a quick conversation.
Yeah.
And I think, sit down with them, hand them the menu, take 15 minutes, schedule it with them in advance, maybe, whatever works for your schedule. But again, ask for what you're looking for. It's going to be, well, yes, I think the world's best brand rep with only 5 clients could dedicate the time to really studying your menu. They could stock your bar staff. They could spend a lot of time looking at your back bar and figure out what you're probably going to order. But that's not the reality of this role.
Yeah.
And so anything you can do to help them help you, I hate that phrase.
Help me help you.
Anything you can do to help them
understand,
be a better rep
Yeah.
for you, I think is a huge, huge benefit for both of you.
Right, absolutely. And, it just kind of cuts right to the chase. Instead of having to figure out the song and dance, you kind of get right into it. So that's definitely a good thing. I think, especially with brand new reps, somebody that just got hired, they might not have the exposure to be able to walk into a restaurant and kind of figure out, where do they sit in the spectrum of bars? Are they definitely not nightclubby? They're definitely not, a corner little restaurant. So they'll need to kind of figure that out.
Yeah, I think you were saying that you used to just invite them in for a drink, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing you can do. I mean, and this could be with anybody that you're trying to give them a good idea of what you're trying to accomplish with your bar or restaurant. You just invite them in for a meal or a drink or something and let them experience it from a customer point of view. This works for new hires, somebody that you're looking to kind of bring on your team, maybe a bar back or something, because then they can see it through the customer's eyes. And that's a really, really vital thing, possibly for the right person. It gives them a heads up like, all right, I know what I'm kind of jumping into. I know what I'm signing up for, or this isn't quite for me. I don't think I can do this. I'm going to suggest somebody else, or I'm just not going to go in. So,
no, that's a good point. And I think to sort of wrap up this step one, I would just say it may seem like a pain to actually have to take the time out for this conversation, perhaps schedule it, put the mental energy into having what may feel like a hard conversation. But 2 things. 1, your brand rep's going to be really glad you did. because they want your relationship to be
Right.
successful. They don't want you to fire them. They don't want you to be mad at them. They want you to like them and order lots of stuff because then they make lots of money.
Right.
So this is a good thing. And I think any good brand rep, as hopefully deep down inside they are good brand rep, and would appreciate that conversation. Secondly, even if it is a hard conversation, if this conversation means you can avoid the rigmarole of having to switch reps and then train them from scratch, and by the way, they might be crummy too, like you might have to go through a few. If having a conversation saves you that trouble, it's definitely a net gain on time. It's definitely a good thing.
Yeah, and I mean, you don't want to keep going, cycling your way through brand reps, and we'll get to this in a moment here, but every time you do, imagine it being a form of currency. You're spending social currency every time you do that. So if you do it enough times, it's like the guy that cried wolf, right? Nobody, they're going to be like, oh God, send in Joe Schmo. I don't want to hear him anymore, because he's going to complain in another month as well.
Yeah, the common ground starts to be you.
Yeah, exactly. So, just keep that in mind.
Right.
So let's say you get through step one, and it's not quite sinking in, right? So we're on to step two.
Bag draggers.
Bag draggers. Imagine this rep just doesn't quite get it. He's kind of cemented in his ways. He or she is cemented in their ways, and it's not working. So what do you do next? For me, there's a lot of good reps that probably come in. So transition away from ordering from that one rep to another rep. If up in San Francisco anyways, there's two big players out here, Southern and Young's. If the Southern rep isn't quite what I'm looking for, had this conversation, it's not working, he's still doing the same thing, I'll start to move my product lineup over to Young's, or vice versa, however that works, or fill it in with another provider. But yeah, you've tried. Yeah. Okay, now time to minimize what damage they can cause in my business.
And this is kind of the short-term solution, arguably. But you don't have to reach out to them for new opportunities. You don't have to ask for their help with special events and trainings and things like that. Just don't. Yeah. I mean, you will miss out on the benefit that comes with those things, which is why this is kind of a short-term solution. But it will sort of protect you in the short term. So you can start to think about, like, okay, what's another triple sec we can use that's offered by a different distributor? What's another well vodka, another anything? Chances are pretty good that for most of the things that you work with, there's going to be an alternative. Granted, there are some things that are truly specialized, but with those, you can find another way to order, right?
Right, absolutely. They have cash and carries and stuff like that. You can go in, you can just buy your product. Not the best utilization of time, but you can definitely do that.
When some vendors, can't you order online, send in a text message?
You can.
Just to avoid as much like in-person contact?
Yeah, so you can email. So a lot of places will let you email. They have a portal online. You can go through that. You can call in to the main office and order through them. There's a lot of different ways you can do that. And we mentioned Southern Young's in the Bay Area here. And the beautiful thing about them is they're kind of an umbrella company as well. And they have a lot of little tiny families of products in their portfolio. So any one of those vendors that sell that, like Estates or I can't think, Pacific Wine and Spirits and American, for example, they have access to the mother
the whole portfolio.
The portfolio, right?
Yeah.
So they can order that through them as well. So that could be another option. If you don't like your Southern rep, you can go through your Pacific rep, or I think it's American is the other branch of them, and go through them to order and get your orders in.
That's very true. That's very true. So you've had that conversation. You've had your come to Jesus moment. You've tried to avoid the rep at all costs, and it's just really starting to hurt your business. It's time to request a new rep. And I think I would rather you do this than not do this. Because again, if you don't have a great rep and you're just stuck on step 2, working around them, avoiding them, hiding under the bar every time they walk in the door, that's not great for your business. Selfishly, you're missing out.
Yeah, and this is the whole key to relationships and why we keep bringing this back. is relationships create opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big thing right there. It creates opportunity in many different forms. So if you have a bad brand rep, you're missing out on all those opportunities.
Right.
And so are they, honestly. So,
Yeah,
it's that two-way street.
absolutely.
So it could be really, really vital for you to kind of figure this part out, request a new brand rep, and then kind of start to move forward to having a better relationship.
And this is why I talked about step 2 being kind of a temporary solution. You really do want to work your way towards a great brand rep relationship with all the folks you work with. So I think that we've driven that point home. How do you do it?
Right.
What's next? I think once again, before you get too deep into this process, I think it's important to figure out what you're asking for. If you just go and you reach out to a distributor or your brand rep's boss and you just say like, hey, like, I want a new rep, they're going to send you a new rep. And it might be exactly the same kind of person.
Right.
If you don't get really specific on what you're looking for, then how do they know what to send you?
Yeah, absolutely. So that same conversation that you had in the beginning, step 1, now's the time to kind of call them up and say, hey, look, maybe they're not a good fit. This brand rep is not a good fit.
It's a nice way to put it.
Right, exactly.
Let's be honest. If you're asking for a new rep, they know.
Right.
It's probably not the first time they've had this phone call.
Yeah.
Or it's probably gotten around town.
Yeah, and they probably know this rep isn't the best candidate for this one particular place.
Right.
So they can find somebody, but it's really important to tell them exactly what is missing without calling out that brand rep, without sandbagging them, basically.
Right.
So instead of saying he never shows up on time, they don't call, I set up a training and he never showed up, these kinds of things, just say, hey, look, I'm looking for somebody that can navigate brand support, somebody that's on time, somebody that communicates well. And by not saying that this person is not those things, you're already
saying it.
Yeah, they're going to get the message, and they work with this person every single day. They're going to know too.
And like we always say, like, you want to be known in the industry as somebody who is a positive person.
Right.
You don't want to sandbag the bag dragger. You knew that was coming.
Sandbag dragger.
Sand drag the bag sander. But I mean, there is a positive way to go about this. Like, tackle this phone call as working with that distributor to get to a better solution. Not as like, this guy stinks, get rid of him, I never want to see his face again. You can do that, but again, you're going to start to get a reputation for being a negative person, for being the kind of person who brings other people down.
Yeah, and it could be just a conversation like, hey, I'm really excited to do more business with you. Once we get this part of our business figured out, I'd like to support you, the brands that you carry, and it'll make sense. It'll work, and you can start over.
And think about it from the distributor's perspective. Imagine they never hear from you, and you just stick with step 2 we talked about a minute ago. So now they're not getting any orders from you.
Right.
You've switched your entire bar program to their competitor. You've done all this effort to avoid their portfolio. That stinks.
Right.
They just lost a ton of business and they have no idea why.
Right.
So by having this phone call, even though it may be a little bit of effort and it may be a little bit awkward, they are going to be so glad to have this conversation rather than just kind of getting ghosted by you.
Right, exactly.
They would much rather solve the problem, get you somebody you like, so that again, they can make money.
Right. There's a new opportunity for them.
Opportunity. I see what you did there.
So now that being said, you've had this conversation. You've called up the boss and the distributor and said, I need a new brand rep. The next step is basically to start over. Step 1, right? Tell them what you're looking for. Have a meeting with that brand new sales rep.
Right.
Sit them down and say, look, this is what I'm looking for. I'm excited to do more business with you, but this is the way I operate.
Come on in for a drink.
Right, exactly. And if they're professional, if they're open, and maybe your demands aren't realistic, maybe they're going to say, okay, that's cool. I'm totally down for that, but that's not a reality. I can't come in here and sit at your bar every single day. I have more important things. I have other customers I need to serve. How about this? I'll come in once a week.
Here's what I can do. And that goes back to communication. A great brand rep will be able to communicate. But I think the key here is, don't wait for there to be a problem for you to start this process again.
Right.
This new brand rep is an opportunity for you to start off on the right foot. Take it, invest that time, have that 15-minute conversation and say, let me tell you about our concept. this is what we're going to order. This is what we're never going to order. This is who we are and where we sit in this market.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, here's how I like to work with reps. Here's what I would look for. Again, I would hope they would reply and say, well, that's not realistic, or that works great for me. Here's how I like to place orders. Here's how frequently I want to talk about other opportunities. Here's the kinds of opportunities I might be interested in.
Yeah.
And by having this conversation, you just gave them such a leg up on how to serve you well. I mean, you're just writing your own Christmas list at that point.
Right. And I'll give you kind of an example of one of the best reps I've ever seen, and how they operated. It was phenomenal. And it wasn't even my brand rep. I was consulting, and I ran into this scenario, and I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know this was possible.
Where have you been my whole life?
But it was a beer rep, and it was a big beer focused restaurant. And so the arrangement they had is this beer rep would come in, they would inventory their entire cooler, take out all the stuff that's gone, put in the order for all the product to replace it, and then sit down and say, hey, look, I have 3 new items that I think would be a really good fit for you. They're highly allocated. They're almost impossible to get. I think it's a good fit for what we're doing here. Would you like these 3 things in?
Wow.
And this was every week. Every time they had an order,
time.
and the guy just made out in spades. I mean, he had a significant portion of the lineup, but this is why. I mean, the guy came in every week during ordering time, did all this extra work, and he had so much of the lineup.
Oh yeah,
it was incredible.
I'd give him everything. At that
right.
point.
So this is the potential of a good brand rep. This is why this is such a big focus for me as well. Is it can really help everybody out. I mean, he was making a lot of money. The restaurant was making a lot of money. They were getting access to brand new stuff nobody else could get.
That's pretty great.
New opportunities that nobody else even knew existed. By having this positive relationship, it just made so much difference to both of their businesses.
Absolutely. And I mean, that might not be realistic for
not for
100
everybody.
Clients,
sure.
But I think it's a great example of thinking outside the box too.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking outside of what your last brand rep did was very little,
right,
or too much of the wrong thing, or anything like that. But this is a relationship, and like Chris said, great relationships bring opportunity, and there's no reason that you can't think creatively about that.
Right.
So before we close off this conversation, there's 2 more things that I wanted to bring up. First of all, I think we spent a lot of time talking about sort of the negative side of things, and there's something I wanted to mention about the positive. Something Chris mentioned to me a long time ago is that he once had a mentor who would actually take the time to write a handwritten note and send it to a good rep's boss.
Yeah.
Like, talk about a gesture.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit earlier about how, asking for a new brand rep spends a little bit of your social currency. This is a really good way to build it up again.
Right.
You don't want to be known as the guy who just rejects everything. And so what you can do is you can look at your portfolio and be like, I've got these 3 reps who are just doing a fantastic job, and tell them about it. Tell their bosses about it. It doesn't necessarily need to be a handwritten note. You don't have to send them
flowers
a box
and candy.
of chocolates. But I mean, even just an email can make a huge difference to build that social currency, and it also really strengthens your relationship with the rep and with the vendor.
Absolutely, yeah. I would imagine anybody doing this for you. If you work with them day to day, and all of a sudden you get this great note. People love being praised, especially for a good job. I know, right? So it's a cool thing to do, and this is something that you can do now. Look through your
You don't
vendors.
need to take 5 hours and do it for every rep you have, but take a couple minutes. It's worth it.
Yeah, when my mentor told me that, I was like, that's genius. That's so smart.
And so easy.
Yeah, it's good. It feels good to do something like that too. So the last point is kind of on the flip side of that spectrum.
We were talking positivity.
Yeah, right in the toilet now.
Right.
But the other thing is, this is a two-way street. The other side of that coin is don't be a pain in the butt. Don't be one of these customers that just wants everything for yourself and doesn't give up anything in return. Mm-hmm. So, we all know what it means to be a good customer when we're working with spirit companies. A couple things. I've been guilty of these in the past.
I was going to say, does this look like guilt to you? It
a little
looks
bit.
a little guilty.
Don't put your orders in late. I know things happen. Just don't do it consistently. I think the cutoff is 3:30 or something like that. Don't call them at 3:35.
There have been times when we woke up in the middle of the night
and just sweating
and the room is like glowing.
Yeah.
And I look over and Chris has gotten up. It's like 3:00 in the morning and he's texting his rep.
Right.
I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's not the deadline.
So stuff like that, don't expect too much. If you forget your order on, Wednesday or Thursday, don't expect them to drive down an order because you messed up. The other thing is, don't negotiate every single bottle in your lineup down to the penny. I mean, just don't be that way. If it's on your back bar, you can spend a little bit more money because it's not going to be the volume mover that your well is. So don't look to shave a nickel off of every bottle because it's not fun to go through that exercise through your entire inventory. And I think, don't miss out your appointments. If you set up an appointment, follow through with it. I know the restaurant lifestyle is really hard and things come up. But this is where communication really comes in line. If you can't make it, give them a heads up, like 15 minutes ahead of time. Man, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to make it. I really apologize. If you don't do this every week or every time you have a meeting, they're going to understand.
Right.
But just don't leave them hanging for an hour. And I've seen this happen. I've driven with vendors, sales reps in the past, and they will literally sit at a bar for an hour because somebody just left them hanging in an appointment. So
again, it's a relationship. It goes both ways.
Yeah.
I think a great brand rep can help your bar be successful. A great bar can help a great brand rep be successful. This is not you're not just their customer. Like it's not a one-way street.
Right.
Like treat this as a valuable relationship because it is a valuable relationship. And I think I would say that if you've gone through several brand reps, if you've gone through step 1, 2, 3 several times,
it might not be the reps. Maybe. Could be. Just throwing that out there. Soon.
Time to look in the mirror.
Right. And it could be just, you don't know until somebody points it out. So it could be just small things like all these little things we just outlined about being a pain in the butt customer. Maybe work on your timeliness or putting orders in on time. Like I said, I've been guilty, and hopefully it'll start to work itself out.
And when you have that that sort of step 1 conversation with your rep, there's no reason that you can't ask them how you can help them.
Right.
Again, mutually beneficial relationship. It goes both ways. Have that conversation, and if they come back and be like,
"You got to buy a case of whipped cream vodka from me every month," you'd be like, "Man, we're done.
We're done.
Sorry, bag dragger. Hit the road."
Step 3. But they might come back with something truly valid. Like, it's really frustrating that we have this standing meeting every Thursday that you asked me to set up and you missed 2 of them last month.
Right.
That's fair.
Right.
And I think as a respectful human being, listen to that.
Yeah,
and
you gotta take that
constructive criticism.
Yeah,
I think it's
absolutely.
a good opportunity for everybody to grow. So
yep. Hopefully
you're not a pain in the ass.
Fingers crossed. So hopefully you found this episode interesting. Hopefully you got a glimpse of what a good / amazing brand rep can do for your business, and give you some things to work on to improve the relationship you have with your brand rep. Start to build up some of that social currency, like we mentioned, saying, "Hey, you guys are doing a great job. Gold star. Thank you." And you can have a little wall in the back of your restaurant or bar. Bag Dragger of the Month Club. I mean, it could be a thing.
The show notes will be at mixologytalk.com/130. And because I want to hear some gossip, I think that if anybody out there has some great stories of either great brand reps or not so great
train wreck brand reps,
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of want to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, usually we try to keep things positive, but my God, we're only human. I want to hear some juice. I want to hear some stories about bad brand reps, man.
All right, I mean, you heard him. I can't say it better than that. Mixologytalk.com/130. And thanks again for listening. We will catch you in a couple weeks.
Cheers, everyone.
Daddy shark.
Nah. This is episode number 130. Oh. Beggars! So...